Welcome to Divisive Issues, a comic book podcast where we talk about comic books. I'm Ryan Lynch.
I'm Sly Crappa.
I'm Phil Maverickus.
And I'm Darryl Steffen.
Welcome, guys. You want to get social justice warrior-y up in here?
60 style?
Not particularly, but I'm here. I'm stuck here.
Oh, you got a problem with Darryl? Should we read some more edgelord books?
Oh, man. Between the two, I'll take the social justice issues.
Well, we're going to read the most ultimate edgelord, Stan Lee.
Since we still have Darryl captive, we can just subject him to whatever we want.
People will argue that back first time Stan Lee was very radical.
Those people are me.
People could say he was the Garth Ennis and Mark Millar of his time.
I wouldn't say that.
Really?
You would?
Imagine one day people you know how Stan Lee's in every Marvel movie? Imagine people look at Mark Millar the same way, like, oh look, it's Mark Millar, we love him.
No.
Oh, Mark Millar's in this rape porn cameo.
He's the father of, like, the edgelord comics. They're like, oh, man, his stuff was so good back then.
Okay, guys, can we please stop talking about edgelords? We're not even doing edgelords in this book.
We've been, like, taken captive by them. It's Stockholm Syndrome.
Mentally.
Well, so what are we doing if not edgelord stuff?
Okay, so harkening back to our early days of doing, like, a compilation of related but, like, not part of a series issues.
And by early days, we mean one episode so far.
Yeah, but a while ago, early day. And we're going to do some old 60s, and are they all 60s?
Some of them are early 70s.
Okay, so 60s.
They're close enough.
Yeah, so 60s and 70s Marvel issues where they tackle such, I guess mostly just sexism.
There's a racism, too.
There is a little racism.
And when you say tackle, they're like quarterback or like football player style, like jamming it into the wall and just like beating the shit out of it. So they're like, there's very little nuance when it comes to these.
Well,
issues.
we should. I want to just give a little backstory on comics at a time for people who don't know. So we had DC. DC for the time was basically making silly stories about Superman getting turned into a cat and stuff like that. Very low substance stories about.
We're going to get angry letters from Joe about that, Sly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Bring it on, bitch. And so basically, what DC was doing substanceless stories. The characters weren't much of characters. They were largely just like, oh, I'm a good guy. The stories were just episodic, like stories of them getting to wacky scenarios. And when Marvel came onto the scene, they changed a lot of things by making the characters more flawed. Each character argued with each other. They fought with each other. They were not just, I'm a good guy and I'm a good guy too. Batman, Superman working together would be like, I'm heroic too. It was like Thing and the Human Torch would fight, and like a lot of inner squabbling would go on.
We poke a lot of fun at like the current kind of cliche of like the heroes fight and then they team up. And even though it seems like not groundbreaking at all, at the time when Fantastic Four came out in November in 1961, having them just argue with each other and not immediately be like, we're together teaming up to fight justice. Fight for justice.
Fight social justice.
Yeah,
For
was
justice?
Yeah, fighting for justice was very unheard of at the time, and having like characters disagree on the best way to approach things was really really a totally brand new thing. And they only even did that because Marvel was gonna go out of business, and they were like, Stan Lee, do whatever you want. Yeah,
and Stan Lee, we have our opinions on him, but just to describe him a little bit, he can be wordy. and I do want to bring up though.
Sly, you are talking, and I'm listening to you talk. Now I have to think about what you are saying.
And just to explain, the Marvel method at the time was basically to make the images as exciting as possible. A lot of times, the artist, basically Stan Lee would give a basic outline. The artist would draw. Based on that outline, he'll basically plot it out with his art. And then Stan Lee will put a shit ton of dialogue afterwards.
He loves describing what is happening in the scene itself.
At the time, it was very more colorful than what you would get from DC at the time. And
one thing too, Stan Lee's writing style had. We look at it as really, really campy nowadays, but it had a lot more charm and humor than regular comics at the time. Like, even though they talk a lot, they actually like crack jokes or like point out when things are ridiculous, and that's something that like was totally not a thing until Stan Lee.
Yeah, most books were played straight by the actual cast, like, and just give them a back to Stan Lee. he was very good on racial issues. He had a lot of
What do you mean by good?
like he had some of the earliest black characters like.
Black Panther was the first black superhero.
Yeah, Luke Cage was the first African American superhero.
No, the Falcon was.
Oh, so Falcon, and then Luke Cage.
But that's also Stan Lee.
Yeah, also Stanley. But you had that, and you had, unlike DC, you actually, as time went on, you have more and more black people in supporting roles. You had him as Robbie Robinson in Spider-Man, one of the editors at the newspaper. And you have just random people on the street be different minorities, and that you'll never see on DC.
Yeah, and one thing too is, especially, we haven't talked about any Golden Age comics on this show, but when you look at like comics in the 40s and 50s, they're pretty racist and caricature of everything. Yeah. And just having like Ant-Man's lab assistant or Spider-Man's boss being black characters was really like a big deal. And like we see that a lot now when people talk about like representation in Hollywood, and like at the Oscars it was a big deal, and like people are still having this fight to just have diverse casts of characters. And Stan Lee, while it was still mostly white, there were leaps and bounds ahead of the status quo for him.
I mean, you have to think he's from what, Brooklyn or Queens, and almost every. It seems like almost every Marvel hero is from New York City or the tri-state area. So, like, when they're hanging out in Manhattan all the time, it seems like it would be not just, like, easy to... Like, you kind of would have to include the diversity. Like,
you would think that, but
you would think that.
That's not the case.
Keep this in mind. At this time, around the time these books were published, Star Trek was, like, the first show to ever have an interracial kiss. And it was boycotted... when the episode aired, because people in the South refused to air black people kissing white people. So you might think, oh, this is obvious, but this is still in the midst of like the civil rights struggle. This is still in the midst of a massive racism.
People still
in the South.
protest things when like characters get the races of characters changed, or like when there's still like that push for like PC, like how come this commercial has to have a black person and a white person and an Asian person? Like it's this, and this was 50 years ago.
Yeah. So get after all that fun stuff, let's get into the boring stuff of the actual goofy writing that Stan Lee does create.
Yeah. So we're going to start with Fantastic Four number 11, which has 2 stories in it. We're only going to talk about the first story. And it's supposed to be like a day in the life of the Fantastic Four. It's called A Visit with the Fantastic Four. And there's a lot of stuff in here that is just so silly. Like, it starts with the Fantastic Four walking through the city, and they see these kids playing. And I just want to point out, the kids are, like, playing as the Fantastic Four, and one guy just has, like, really long planks of wood, and he's like, I'm Mr. Fantastic. I'm all stretchy. And the Thing just has a bunch of pillows under his shirt and, like, a rock mask.
A guy impersonating the Thing, not the Thing.
Yeah, like, they're all little kids.
The kid thing.
The Human Torch has firecrackers. And the reason why I bring this up is it kind of sets the stage pretty well, that they're all like running around and jumping, and then the young girl just hides behind a pole and is like, you can't find me, I'm the invisible girl. So even...
We should clarify, this is before Sue Storm had force field powers. All she could do literally in every fight was hide.
Yeah.
And also, we should also clarify, Stan Lee was very progressive on racial issues. As we get into this, we'll see he's not that progressive on sexism issues. I would say sexy issues.
Yeah.
He tries to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all these books we're gonna read, they try, I think, but they fumble so badly that when you say he's progressive, it's like I guess for the time he was. It's just.
Well, you want to get to the actual meat of it first, and then we'll talk about it.
Sure.
So the Fantastic Four shows up, and like the kids are like, "Oh, you guys are so great!" And it's supposed to establish that they're not the X-Men; they're beloved in the city. Like everybody loves them, nobody's mad at them. And when they get there, Willie Lumpkin, their mailman, gives them a big sack of mail, like fan letters. And
fun fact: Willie Lumpkin was played by Stan Lee in the movies.
Yes,
I can imagine he's just Stan Lee.
That was a very early Stan Lee cameo, right?
That was a very early one, yeah.
So they go up to the apartment and they're dumping out it's hundreds of packages and fan letters, and they start reading them. And the first package is for the Thing.
What's in that package?
So he's like, he opens his box. Well, he's about to open the box, and he's like, "There's no return address. I hope it's something to eat. I'm starving." And he opens it, and it's a boxing glove on like a spring, and it punches him in the face. And he gets so mad. And is this? You might know better than me, Sly. Is this the first Yancey Street prank?
It's one of the earliest ones.
It's definitely one of the earliest ones, and this becomes a long-running gag for decades and decades, where Ben Grimm's like childhood street where he grew up is Yancey Street, and there's a gang that just pranks him all the time.
Yeah.
And I think this is Fantastic Four 11. This might be the first one, and they're just so mean for no reason. And then Reed's like, "Don't worry, I got something that'll cheer you up," and he pours a vial of like some sort of liquid in Ben's hand, and he just turns back into a human. And this is something that Sly complained about a lot, that I agree that in early Fantastic Four, they weren't ready to accept that, like, they being Marvel, weren't ready to accept that the Thing is just a monster forever. So he would always be turning into a person and then turning back into the Thing by the end of the issue. And sometimes it's done really well. This time it's not. But
it's just randomly done there.
It's randomly done, and then Sue Storm's just like, "Ooh, hey, Ben."
Yeah.
Oh, fuck Reed, I'm gonna fuck you now.
Yeah, she basically just like starts flirting with him, and she's really cute.
I think because to get into their backstory, Ben wanted to show what he looks like as a person. That's my only guess. Why?
It's to frame it. But the only reason why I bring it up, because it doesn't have anything to do with discrimination. But the reason why I think it's so funny,
everyone's racist against Ben because he's a rock.
But Reed had they just got in from the mail. That means Reed's had this cure for like a little while, at least an hour, and he doesn't mention it.
It's a surprise.
Ben is a horrible rock monster. He's like, "We'll go out to lunch, and then when we get back, I'll wait for you to get punched in the face."
Also, what I like about him is that he says, "Welcome back to the human race, partner," Reed to Ben, as if like Ben isn't part of their team, but he's the Thing. They just they begrudgingly accept him.
You're no longer a hideous freak, Ben. Congratulations.
Yeah, they pretty much say that.
Yeah, because it's very like Stanley's introducing this in this book, not this issue, but whole like Ben struggling that he's a monster is something totally unheard of in superhero comics, but it's still handled in such like a hokey way.
Yeah, superheroes were never freaks until Marvel, really.
Yeah,
like X-Men and the Thing.
Like, and we think about like the Hulk and the Thing and the X-Men, and like that's such like a super like
hero
common thing now. Yeah, but it wasn't that way at all. Like before that, so now we get a big flashback that basically goes through like
it's a Fantastic Four origin.
Yeah, and so now we recap the whole origin. They go to space, they get their powers, blah blah blah, and now Reed's like, it cuts back to modern times, and Reed's like, we keep getting this letter, and I'm paraphrasing here, and I'm really sick of this bullshit. Of all what you guys are saying.
And Ben's actually like, "Calm down, Reed. They don't understand. Readers just don't understand the situation of this."
And of course, Sue's crying.
She's
like,
this.
"They were your adventures, the three of you, much more than they were mine. I keep getting these letters that the team would be better without me, and I'm just useless." And
which is very true. All she does is turn invisible and hide.
Yeah, that's true. But the thing is, this is why it's so poorly handled, because have Sue justify it.
Yeah, instead it's Reed is the one that defends her, because she's busy like crying and he has his arm around her and she can't look at the letter.
Also, just write her better.
Yeah. You can also just write her better. That's why Stanley eventually gives her force field powers and like, but
that's why I at the conclusion of every book, my opinion was this shouldn't have been written. Like this doesn't need to exist. It doesn't actually serve any social purpose. And it's not a good written book anyway.
Okay, so I have to get to the crutch, though. The reason why I want to talk about this issue. So it's very short, but Reed just says, maybe this will help them to understand. See this bust of Abe Lincoln? There's just a bust of Abe Lincoln behind him all of a sudden. I don't know why it's there. Remember his famous remark about his mother? The time he said that all that he had ever hoped to be, he owed to her? And he points at the viewer, like at the reader. Lincoln's mother, and it zooms in on his face. Lincoln's mother was the most important person in the world to him, but she didn't help him fight the Civil War. She didn't split rails for him. She didn't battle with his enemies. And then Ben chimes in. In fact, if we printed Lincoln's life in our magazine, some wise guy would probably write in and ask why we don't leave his mother out of the story, because she doesn't do enough. and then that's when Reed goes, while we're on the subject of doing enough,
he points out like a bunch of different fights as to do one thing.
Two fights.
2 fights, and
To be fair, it was only like 10 issues before this. So
I
it's
know,
like a
but like,
fifth of
but just to clarify, they will have like a story where Sue gets kidnapped, and then the rest of Fantastic Four have to basically fight pirates and stuff. Like they will do like a shit ton of things, and she'll do nothing. She'll be literally kidnapped.
She would hide, sneak across the room, and punch a button.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then basically Ben gets so mad about it. He says, if you readers want to see women fighting all the time, then go see Lady Wrestling, which really puts the icing on the cake for me. He's basically saying, like, you want to see strong women? Go watch a thing where women act like men. And Ben gets so mad that he turns back into the thing, because of course he does. And then he's like, oh, of all the crummy luck.
And this is my favorite thing. Like Ben's like, oh, I'm still just a fucking ugly gorilla. And Sue's like, oh, Ben, I'm so sorry for thinking about myself for once in my life. I should have just been worried about you. You were my man in my life.
And then there's an alarm, and the 3 of them run away, and they find an alien spaceship, and they go in, and it's a surprise birthday party for Sue, and they give her a cake.
Yeah, it was her birthday all along. They didn't mention it once. They're like, let's read these fan letters.
And then, of course, Stanley has to put in a sexist joke.
Oh, my God.
Sue goes, I'm so choked up. I don't know what to say. And Ben says, first time I ever heard a female admit a thing like that. And
that's like really that sums it all up. That every one of these sexism tackling issues, they're like, the woman at the end apologizes because she's like you said, I realize what a fool I've been indulging in self-pity. So she realizes that she was wrong to want to be a character. And
not only does she start crying and the 2 men are like, let me handle it, but he quotes a man talking about how great a woman was. Like, you can't give an example. Like, this is, I guess, when did the women's lib movement really, like...
It was around, like, this
It was around this time, right? But either way, I just, especially that the Ben... That the thing makes some crack about how women don't shut up at the end while she's apologizing for, like, feeling anything about herself. It's just so, come on. And it's one of those things that, like, it would have been better for Stan Lee to just not mention that he doesn't know how to write women. But by putting it in the spotlight, you're like, oh, this is the worst.
If Stan Lee treated like he did with minorities, where they're just regular people, but that just happen to be black, it'll be a lot better.
Yeah. But we'll see it again when we get to the other Fantastic Four issue that has a specific thing that I want to point out about Sue.
All right, so Phil, you said you don't see why this book had a reason to exist.
Yeah, so it's like we just said, if you're going to make an issue about how women are important and not non-characters, but then at the end, the woman just says, I'm sorry for taking any time away from the comic, and then they make fun of women at the end, and it's not like a one-off here, like the other feminist or pseudo-feminist issues that we read, they do the same exact thing where they're just like, at the end, they're like, haha, women. And if you're going to do that, just don't make this comic. It doesn't, what purpose does this serve?
But one of the things is back then, like, the thinking is that, like, doing the jokes at the end, that's like there was no casual racism or casual sexism. Like, it was just like, it's just funny to make that joke. You're not like, oh, I'm contributing in a minor way to sexism or racism.
Like in our context now, on our PC bullshit culture, it's obviously rings wrong to us because it is wrong to do that. But back then, think about now how many people are tone deaf to how their jokes are construed.
I understand, like you said this before too. Like comics at the time, like this is progressive for comics at the time, and I understand that. But like I think I brought this up to you the other day that I feel like it's not a good enough excuse for me because like feminist literature predates this by far, and it was quite abundant too. Like you can find stuff like
Virginia was like Betty Friedan writing at this point? Right?
Yeah, I don't think anyone will argue whether or not this is justifiable in terms of culture in general, but I think in terms of comics, it is because it wasn't that far off from what was in comics. But definitely, no one will say this is not a sexist book.
Okay, yeah. I totally, and I get that. It's just more like I feel like a lot of times it's easy to say like, well, for comics it's good, but to me, I'm like, well, comics were behind then because Virginia Woolf was writing in the 20s. Kate Chopin was writing in the 1800s. Like,
if this was another writer, I would be more, I think, forgiving about it, because I'm like, they're trying. But, like, Stan Lee introduces the Falcon, and it's not, like, look how black this guy is. Or he's not saying, like, sorry, I'm black, but I'm also a superhero.
Yeah, like, white people are taking the show at the end of the day or something.
We should also clarify that most comic, like, in general, was viewed as a conservative thing. Like, Superman and Batman were, like, conservative heroes. Like, not to say, like, the right wing or anything, but they were not viewed as... They were more, traditional values and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when Marvel was like the first any superhero book with any kind of liberal bent to it whatsoever. Like there was no like X-Men like heroes or anything like that. The idea to suggest that minorities or other people are what we should be focusing on or whatever. So it's like it's liberal in a very conservative environment. But for some reason, sexism is one huge blind spot for Stan Lee.
I mean, Sue Storm didn't really become a good character until, like, John Byrne's run in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like comics are very... Even now, like...
And
Marvel... I wouldn't say Marvel made a really strong push for strong female characters until, like, 5 years ago.
I guess I shouldn't be too harsh on comics, because it does seem to be a thing, not just in comics, but in like nerdy entertainment in general. Like video games have a big problem with sexism too.
Oh yeah, it's a good example. Video
Yeah.
games pieces of shit, and the video game creators pieces of shit is because so many sexism in video games.
Some of them are.
Some of them are. That's
Well,
true.
the last 4 years have been decent about handling it.
And that's the thing
Yeah.
is, like, we're saying, like, oh, this comic's really sexist, but, like, we're going to talk about when they really lean harder into, like, feminist ideals, and sometimes it's even more clunky.
Yeah.
It is. I think. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So let's transition to our next book, The Hate Monger, which will be read by Darryl.
Okay, so
So another Stan Lee Fantastic Four book. This one's issue 21.
yeah, this isn't about women though. It's about like hate in general, because the main villain of it that shows on the first page is the Hate Monger. It's a guy and basically.
Hold on, can I just point out that the first ad is for bodybuilding, and it's "I'll build you into a new athletic, mighty muscled, all male He-Man." So, I mean, that's the kind of advertising.
I like that Ryan interrupted the description of the cover to describe the interior ad.
I thought you were saying on the first page.
Women always say, "I just adore all male He-Man." That's the quote on there.
Yeah, so like that was this is an ad from a company, not from Marvel. So like that's obviously the culture at the time, and it's terrible.
Yeah, that's who they're targeting, and that's what they think young boys want. But this, so the main villain of the story is the Hate Monger.
Let me interrupt you, Darryl. I want to talk about the other ad.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
There's an ad for X-ray goggles in here.
Even though I did interrupt you. So
There
it's not-
are ads for X-ray goggles, and they let you see through women's clothes. So like, come on.
The Hate Monger is a guy in a KKK robe that's like purple, and he's got a big H on his chest, and he's dressed up in chainmail with like leather boots. And he's holding a torch. What's really funny is Reed and Ben's face on the first page.
They have a splash page, and they show like the Hate Monger and there's like fire surrounding him, and they have the Fantastic Four floating in front of him, and they all look like they're challenged.
Yeah.
in some
So
way.
all the art in both of these issues, both the Fantastic Four issues, is Jack Kirby, who's like hailed as like one of the greatest comic artists of all time.
He's good.
If you love Stan Lee, you should love Jack Kirby because they co-create a lot of stuff together, and it's arguable that Jack Kirby was the reason why a lot of the stuff Stan Lee created was good.
I only know them together.
Yeah, and I would argue that at this point in Fantastic Four, Kirby's art is still a little unrefined.
Oh yes, I agree with
And
that.
hasn't hit the stride that like he's beloved for.
Yeah, he didn't put enough giant machines yet,
Oh no, there's still a lot of giant machines, don't
but
worry.
not enough. Not every page.
No.
Just for context, Ryan was saying, "Fuck Jack Kirby. He puts giant machines."
I
out.
didn't say
Fucking
that.
piece of shit.
Well, hey, Sly. The first page of the issue, there's a giant machine in the first panel.
Yeah, so that's why Ryan hates his comics. His giant machines.
I
fucks
just said he
his
uses a
book.
lot of giant machines. I love Jack Kirby.
I love his giant machine.
Me too. Yeah, Darryl knows what's at.
Okay, so
Speaking of
well,
where it's at.
yeah, get to
So
it.
it starts with the
Sorry.
Fantastic Four, and they're each doing their own little thing. Reed's in his lab doing science work, and he's trying to figure out what is affecting like the moon's gravitational pull. And then it shows Johnny, and he's doing his own thing, which is throwing darts at a dartboard that has Spider-Man's face on it. And the thing is just boxing
Wait,
against
you
like
skipped what Sue's doing.
Oh, I'll get to Sue. The thing's boxing like a giant iron machine. Like it's the only kind of
It's a punching bag.
yeah, the only punching bag that can withstand his force. And Sue is in her own room trying on wigs, and she's got like 6 different wigs.
Look at the narrative. The third member of America's Most Colorful Quartet is proving that a girl is a girl,
Yeah,
even
but-
when she's a full-fledged partner of the Fantastic Four.
I like that we were like, this issue's not about sexism, but wait, it kind of is.
I always like to imagine whenever they have something like that, I always imagine like if it was inverse. And it was like, oh, sometimes a man is a man, and then they show him like, I don't know, like chopping wood in the background.
Jerking off. I
Yeah.
guess.
The thing is, it's one of those things that it's like hard to draw the line of where it's not okay, because it's a woman in a superhero team would probably care about her appearance.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that every time she shows up, that if you're just showing her putting on makeup as her role, it's like,
Yeah, and you also don't want to like paint her with the wide brush of like she can't do things that are considered feminine by society standards.
right.
But like you have to also have her do other things, and you shouldn't refer to her as a daydreaming beauty in the next panel.
You can't paint people as like a one-dimensional thing and expect people to not get annoyed by it.
Yeah.
They can do all the things that may be considered stereotypical in the context of a full character, a full person. But when like her role is be captured and put on wigs, it's like
Yeah.
So basically, they all go to see Ben because he's making a big racket, and he says that he's like taking out his anger because the Crumb, who calls himself the Hate Monger, has been causing trouble wherever he goes, and nobody can stop him because he's too smart to break any laws.
Yeah.
So they go outside to go see this guy, and it's just like the guy in his like purple KKK robe with like next to guys in green with torches, and he's just spreading hate. Like that's all he does.
Just a little context. Stanley and Jack Kirby both fought in World War II. So when they use Nazi imagery, like these guys standing around, like, you know, they have their arms out and these torches and Hate Monger's giving the speech. Like, Kirby was a Jewish soldier fighting in World War II. He created Captain America. Like, he did not use Nazi imagery lightly.
that is interesting to know, because it is pretty heavy-handed with him.
He actually, when he created Captain America, neo-Nazis, like, this was in the 40s. I guess they're not neo-Nazis, they're just Nazis.
It was before World War II started. I mean, before America joined.
Before
World War
America
II.
joined, yeah.
They would, like, come to Marvel and, like, they're like, we're gonna beat the shit out of, you know, the people who make Captain America. And he went downstairs, he's like, fine, fucking fight me, I'll kick your asses, because Jack Kirby's awesome.
Yeah.
So the Hate Monger is just talking about, like, we must drive all the foreigners back where they came from. We must show no mercy to those we hate.
We must build a wall.
Yeah, he basically just wants to kick out foreigners.
Yeah.
I can't imagine someone existing like this.
Yeah.
And the Fantastic Four have a good response. They're actually agreeing with his un-American sentiments. He seems to have the crowd in a trance. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they're surprised, because then the crowd turns on, like, citizens. They're like, stop, I'm a citizen just the same as you.
Yeah, could you imagine, like, a riot between protesters and hate mongers?
We keep dissing this book, but it's so relevant now.
No,
Yeah.
it would be relevant if when we get...
No, it becomes relevant because just like someone else, he points a gun at the Fantastic Four and shoots them with a hate ray, which makes them hate each other. So then they all start fighting each other, and they're all just like using put downs on each other. It's like the most silly, and I don't even know how to describe it.
I like how basically Human Torch is like step aside useless to the Invisible Woman, and she's like, "Who are you calling useless?" And then she goes invisible and hides. So it's like
No, she turns invisible and then dumps a bucket of water on him.
Also, I did not know Johnny had the ability to make a flame lasso to hold people.
I didn't
Yeah,
either.
he does.
I like that idea that all Sue can do is to go invisible, but Johnny has flame lassos.
yeah.
Anyway, they're all fighting each other.
They fight
and-
for a long time.
Yeah, it's like 4 pages, or 4 or 5. And so after they get done fighting each other, they basically say like, "I've had it," and they all break off and go their own separate ways. Because as Johnny says, "I'm sick of looking at your ugly pans."
And Sue says, I can't believe... I must have been mad to think I loved Reed Richards. He's just a big zero.
No, she specifically got mad. They all forgot about me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they left her behind.
And the civilians point out like, "Wow, Fantastic Four split up and just left the Hate Monger completely alone." And Hate Monger's like, "Ha ha ha, I win."
Yeah.
So Reed goes back to the Baxter building, and then someone's been beating up everybody, and guess who it is? It's Nick Fury,
Yeah.
his old war buddy.
This is Nick Fury's first modern appearance. He was a World War II character who fought alongside Captain America.
So he goes to see him because they need to go to, where is it?
Sand. He was sand.
No, it's San Gusto. And I like that Reed's looking at that giant machine.
Yeah, there's a giant like while they're talking, Reed's just checking out giant machine, saying, "Oh, I'm just shooting up some nuclear activators while we talk."
Yeah, and then Nick Fury's like, "Hey, what's with the mad scientist bit?"
and Ryan got super mad, like reading this, like, "What the fuck? This giant machine."
So then,
Also, why are they going to San Gusto, this fake country, to help overthrow the government or whatever? Right? They're funding rebels or something.
no.
Yeah, that's also something we would never do.
No, yes, they do. It says Uncle Sam has been pouring billions into San Gusto to make it a showplace of democracy, but suddenly everything's gone nuts around there.
No, because Reed defends the government. Like, he fights against the rebels.
Yeah, Reed goes to defend because the rest of the team hate him. When they show up later on, they go to fight, join the rebels.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like, we need to support because we're trying to establish democracy in this country. These rebels don't want it, so we have
Also,
to...
Reed's like kind of a dick the whole time. That's important because he
Yeah.
has the H-ray. But he's
Because
still like, he's
everyone-
not like super aggressive. He's just like kind of a dick.
Well, he's just like Reed every day.
Yeah, basically.
Yep. So then Reed goes off, and everyone sees in the sky that's like, oh, that's Reed's ship. I can't believe the rest of the Fantastic Four team. They're all mad that Reed is leaving
And
them.
this is the perfect example of the just not subtle, but like inherent sexism in the way they write these characters. Is the Thing and Johnny are like, we're supposed to be part of this team. Fuck Reed. He can't go on without us. We're going to go. And then Sue does the exact same thing, but thinks to herself, my female curiosity won't let me sleep until I find out why he's taking the plane. Like,
Yeah.
what? She could have the same reason as the other two guys.
That's why I like this. Like, I've never heard of like female curiosity before. It's like, how's that different from?
And like Ben is with his blind sculptress girlfriend, like this character stuff a little bit there, while Sue's just getting a dress on.
Yeah.
Yep. So now we've seen her just try on a wig, try on a dress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she's got to do what a girl does.
Yeah.
So then they take off in their own ship to go there, and then Hate Monger sees them taking off, and he's like, oh, they have to be going to San Gusto. So he gets in this
Subsurface missile, a fucking underground submarine.
and what I love is as an editor's note that says, this machine is not as imaginary as it may seem. It is reported that even now the Russians are working on a similar vehicle powered by the reverse thrust of a rocket engine.
So remember, hating foreigners is bad unless they're Russians.
And another point is, there's no way that's true. No way fucking Russians are making a fucking rocket
Then
submarine.
what's great is it goes like under the ocean into like the center of the earth to do the shortest distance. It's just insane.
It's just a rocket, like it's a rocket reversed shooting. Instead of blasting to propel itself, it's blasting a hole for it to go through.
It's really dumb. I mean, it's not like maybe there was a plan, a blueprint for a prototype
Probably
of this.
not. Probably not.
I would like to imagine more that the Russians like leaked that, and it was like, this is the dumbest idea we ever had. Let's leak it, make the Americans think that this is a great idea. And they'll make it instead.
It's very
We can
possible,
finally
actually.
stop the Fantastic Four once and for all.
So Reed's over there and he's fighting against the rebels in San Gusto.
He reaches up with his stretchy arms and rips missiles off of a plane.
Yeah, and my favorite, it's these guys walking on a suspicious blue road, and they're like, what's going on? And then it's Reed's back. And as he starts like wobbling around, they're like, flee for your lives! The road is bewitched.
Madre de Dios! You know.
Yeah.
Yep. So then he ends up finding the Hate Monger's lair, but as he's going inside, like, he gets hit by nerve gas, so he's like stunned but awake enough to listen to Hate Monger basically just talk to him about dominating the world.
Yeah.
And Nick Fury shows up and saves them, and then
Yeah, he kicks everyone's ass again because he's awesome.
Yeah.
It's just weird how he he asks for the Fantastic Four's help, but he obviously doesn't need them.
I know. Why is Nick Fury in Fantastic Four's help? He's way better than them. That's a good
Yeah.
question.
Because it's in Fantastic Four, not Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos, so the Fantastic Four have to be there.
And I love this too, how Nick Fury puts his gun to Hate Monger's face and he's like, give him the antidote or I'll shoot you. And he's like, okay. He gives him the antidote and then he's like, see ya. Whereas he could have just said see ya and not given Reed the antidote.
yeah, and just like Mark Millar's favorite nemesis, he hides behind bulletproof glass that comes out of the ground suddenly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they find the antidote, and then Reed has to like trick the other Fantastic Four members into swallowing it. So it's just basically him wrapping his big stringy arms around them and shoving a pill down their throat.
Yeah.
Or tricking the thing to open his mouth because the thing does not stop talking.
Yeah, and like when he does it, they don't just spit it out. They force to swallow it, I guess. Just like my girlfriend on Friday night.
Then
And then they're like, "Where's Sue?" And she's invisible. And Reed's like, "I'll just make myself into a big blanket and catch her. She's got to be somewhere."
I like that she's just like invisible walking. She wasn't doing anything. The rest of them, like Thing and Johnny, are
Storm.
fighting Reed, and Sue's just walking around.
That's Sue Storm, though.
But how did she could be anywhere in this whole country? So he's like, I'll just be a blanket everywhere.
They knew like Sue Storm couldn't fucking do anything.
Yeah,
Like,
she'd be by the men.
Yeah, she couldn't like start a militia anywhere or anything.
To be fair, she is useful because in the next page they end up meeting the Hate Monger again, and it's like his forces are attacking Nick Fury, and Sue slips up behind him while she's invisible and grabs him before he shoots a hate ray at the Fantastic Four again, and he hits his own guards, who then shoot him.
Yeah.
And then it's revealed that since the Hate Monger's dead, they're like, well, we might as well see who he is. And the guy with the giant H on his chest is Hitler.
Yep.
Yes.
Wow. This is when I started reading the comic, I was like, this is gonna be Hitler. Like, it's so tone deaf, it has to be Hitler.
We should mention the cover says, "Don't you dare reveal the true identity of the Hate Monger after reading this tale."
And we kept that. We didn't tell Darryl or Phil who it was.
And they actually do hint toward him being Hitler earlier when Sue grabs him and says, blue eyes, and he has all the Nazi guards around him. So,
And they say, we don't know if it's him or one of the many Hitler doubles.
Yep, so they could probably just use Hitler again sometime later.
And then Reed gives some quick thing about how... Yeah.
He says, until men truly love each other, regardless of race, creed, or color, the Hate Monger will still be undefeated. Let's never forget that.
And I love their caption, and Reed Richards' words never shall be forgotten. Not while the stars and stripes still wave, not while America endures.
And this actually I wanted to mention because a lot of Stan Lee's, like, stories with a moral, like, he has a Thor issue that ends like this that I absolutely love, but they always have this, like, them really reiterating, like, hey, don't hate people. And that's one of the reasons why I
Those are commies.
Yeah, except commies.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I hate the Sue Storm issue so much, the previous one that we talked about, because it doesn't end with anything. It ends with a sexist joke, where Stan Lee usually is like, hey guys, remember the thing I'm saying, I'm beating you over the head with it, hate is bad, or like racism is bad, or like, you know, we should always strive to be better. But Stan Lee ends the other one with, LOL, women talk too much.
Yeah. I think, though, this comic was, in my opinion, worse than the other one.
Oh, wow,
Really?
I disagree.
I disagree.
So, the reason I dislike this one more is because I think, whereas, as I said, the other one shouldn't have existed, it doesn't do anything, I feel like this actually is a negative. It actually does the opposite effect, where you're trying to preach, this comic is trying to make a point against hate, right? Against xenophobia. But they do it in a way that no one could ever be xenophobic and racist unless they were shot with a magical hate ray. And, like, the villain uses magic to make people be the way humans actually are in real life. And by like making it like this like fantasy element, you're pretending it's like in like Lord of the Rings, like when the bad guys are orcs and the good guys are humans, you're taking away the fact that humans can be dicks too. I mean, I guess Lord of the Rings has dick humans sometimes, but
they don't have good orcs.
Right. You don't have like they're introducing such a huge fantasy element, like the only way that people could, you know, be like this is with magic. Or they even with the San Gusto stuff, they're justifying all the American coups in South America by like the only way people would rebel against our puppet governments is if they were shot with a hate ray. So
it's definitely the product of the times of like pre-Vietnam.
Yeah,
you know,
I think
sentiment.
A counterpoint to that too is it's not that I don't think Stan Lee went out to make something like with such a strong message about hate as much as he wanted to first entertain and then slip in that meaning as like a secondary objective, because I think you're looking at these as like failed, and they are in some way like failed statements on discriminatory issues, but instead it's just like he's just trying to have fun.
And one thing I would like to point out is the target audience for comic books at this time was like 12-year-old boys and like kids. And like DC had a model where every 4 years you could rehash stories because our audience is all new and nobody reads comics after they turn like 15. So like the fact that Stan Lee's putting any social message in there at all is like Is it done way better way later? Yeah, absolutely. But just having a message of like, hey, prejudice is bad. Like, and the hate monger, even without his magic rays, his legacy lives on when you hate your neighbor, is pretty effective, because how, for a young kid to like read into, to like, they're not getting any of that really from their like entertaining, like silly, like Saturday morning cartoons and stuff. That getting it in this way, I think, is kind of, like Darryl said, slipping in this message into what they think is just a fun superhero thing.
I understand that. Like you said, maybe he isn't intending for it to have like this moral thing, but it doesn't matter if he intends it. Like, it's there, and I think the fact that 12-year-olds are reading this, like, this is literally the same decade when the U.S. is supporting like multiple dictatorships in South America.
But it's before the Pentagon Papers, so like.
Stanley was not aware of what was going on, Phil.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, the public didn't know about these
That's
terrible
true.
things
Okay.
we were doing. Yeah.
All right.
This was a more idealistic time in general.
Yeah, we're not supposed to be communists. Pinko sympathizers.
And I'm not justifying it, but I'm saying I think, even though I'm not going to give this at like a fucking Pulitzer, but like I think seeing how Stan Lee's style evolves over the 10 years that he was like the main writer at Marvel, this is him planting seeds and seeing how much can I get away with. Can I talk about racism? Let's try it in a fantasy way first, and if I'm allowed to do this and the public accepts it and the book sells, maybe I'll get more nuance later.
Yeah, that's kind of
Okay.
neat.
All right, I'll accept that. I wish he didn't have a hate ray, but
Yeah, no, I agree.
No,
I definitely agree.
Phil, I wish he didn't have a hate. I wish no one had a hate rate.
Yeah.
I wish Donald Trump didn't have a hate rating.
Oh,
Barry Anderson, you have your answer. So let's leave Stan Lee behind and talk about the guy who followed Stan Lee on almost all of these books, Roy Thomas.
Sure, we're gonna talk about the Avengers, guys, and
Issue 83.
issue 83, and we're guest starring Black Widow and the Magnificent Medusa, and the cover is a bunch of female super people standing over the fallen Avengers, but I don't recognize like any of them.
Black Panther, Quicksilver, Vision.
I know Quicksilver
And Goliath.
Goliath.
That's actually Hawkeye. He's
Yeah.
Goliath at this point.
Oh, okay. I was like, who the fuck are these Avengers?
that's
But
weird.
the cover is standing over the giant body of Goliath, this woman saying, "All right, girls, that finishes off these male chauvinist pigs. From now on, it's the Valkyrie and her lady liberators."
And this is now 1970.
Yeah. Just to give a backstory on Roy Thomas, though, like when I say he followed up on Stan Lee on a lot of his books, his best stuff are his Avengers and X-Men.
They take a lot of Roy Thomas's ideas and use them in Avengers too. Like, he created Vision, he created Ultron.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. So it opens up with Wasp, who I think is Ant-Man's wife.
Yeah, hey Phil, just like Stan Lee, defining a woman by her husband. Cool.
Yeah. Hey, does the comic really define her as a person?
I like that they do make a point of that later. Valkyrie does.
Yeah. This one actually had some cool ideas, even though I feel like, again, this is a useless piece of trash.
There is some off pieces of dialogue that I'm like, oh, you get it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this might be like the second best of the ones.
We'll see.
Okay.
I really feel like this is trash too, but maybe I'm being too harsh. But let's get through it. So she stumbles upon somehow a meeting of a bunch of female super people, and Scarlet Witch is there, Black Widow's there, Madame Medusa's there. I don't know who that is. And then she's like, "Hey, I'm the Valkyrie."
She says, "Come on in, the revolution's fine," which I actually like a lot. I think that's cool.
Yeah. And they're meeting in the Avengers Mansion, and they said, "Hey, this isn't the Avengers Mansion anymore. Now it's the Liberators." And that's how the story starts. And so Wasp is like, "What? I don't know what's going on here." And then basically there's a lot of exposition here where Valkyrie starts saying, "Hey, you have invisible shackles which men have placed on you, and let me tell you my origin so I can tell you why I dedicated my life to the downfall of male supremacy." And it shows her working in a lab, and she's trying to tell the lead scientist, like, "Hey, I need your opinion." He's like, "I'm busy, young lady. If I need a secretary, I'll ask for one." And then she goes crazy from this, and she's like, the old fool, the old male fool. He lives in a dream world where men have all the brains and women do all the work. And then she's working so hard, she falls asleep with a smoking vial of chemicals in her hand.
Typical woman, right?
Yeah,
That's how the Flash originally got his powers in the Golden Age.
God.
Oh my god.
This one was one of the first I read of this bunch, and I was like, wow, I really hate comics.
You do that every time you read a comic, so.
Not every time, but a lot of times.
Killing joke. Wow, I hate comics.
No, I like that. Anyway, so she smells this chemical, she has super strength after that, and then she wakes up and says, you know what? Male chauvinist pigs beware the Valkyrie.
She doesn't just say that. She lifts a car up to show you her super strength.
Yes,
Yeah.
true. And then Wasp is like, but why would the Avengers be our enemies? And she's like, watch this screen. She plays a projector video for them. And she's like, look, Yellowjacket and our Wasp are in action, but the male, as usual, grabbing all the glory for himself. And here, Wanda, who's Scarlet Witch, you helped capture some hoodlums, and who gets the credit? Look what the headline said. Quicksilver and Sister capture gangland thugs. Written by a man, of course.
This is actually my favorite panel of the entire book, because we're literally seeing that all the time with the Olympics right now.
Yeah,
Not to date the podcast if you listen to this later, but I keep seeing, like, wife of this person wins Olympic medal, and I'm like, fuck you, media. Like, you're the worst.
Or like, Michael Phelps gets bronze in this, and then under it, it's like, first woman to get gold and whatever.
Yeah,
it's
so, like, this really rang with me.
Yeah, this is the most, I think, one of the most relevant parts is that when a man and woman are involved in something, the man will get the credit more often than women. I think that is something that is...
It's a very
not a new-
salient point.
Yeah, it's not anything new.
Then they go on to point out the Black Widow, like, wasn't allowed on the team for so long, and they're like, they let the Vision in. They, do you think Spider-Man would be accepted before you? Basically, like, women have to live up to a higher standard to make it in, a patriarchy. And I'm like, okay.
So then they keep going on this. They're like, all of us have been sidekicks to the male characters, even though we're just as strong as they are. So let's go kick their asses. And so they're like, you want to get in a car? No, we're gonna take a stallion, which are male horses. That's weird, but
Yeah, I thought it was weird that she takes a chariot, like, commandeered by stallions, but then I was thinking it's like, actually, maybe it's about her, like,
slaving them.
commanding?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's what she wants to do to the men. She wants to commandeer all those stallions.
Yeah.
Can we very quickly skip through this whole thing? Like,
Yeah,
the whole
The
Halloween,
party? But Dr. Doom is there.
There's an Avengers Halloween party or something.
Roy Thomas is there with his wife.
Yeah.
Then the real Avengers show up, and they're like, "Hey, what's up? Let's have a parade of Halloween parade float or something with the Avengers on them in person."
Yeah.
I don't know why they're in Vermont for this parade. Whatever.
And then there's, like, these C-tier villains that are going after them. Like, I don't know any of these guys.
Are you calling the Claws and Radioactive Man C tier?
Radioactive Man.
Look at Radioactive Man.
Yeah, so it's just, these fuckers just come in and they're just like, let's kill the Avengers. Then they had this big fight.
And you know what? The one thing I do want to say is they're like, oh, all these people are dressed up like supervillains for Halloween. We'll blend in. And they show up and they're like, we're not supervillains. And the team immediately goes, those guys are probably supervillains. Let's beat them up just in case. And like, why introduce this plan for it to not work at all?
Yeah.
It's to show how smart the Avengers are.
Also to show that Avengers are willing to beat up people in costumes to make sure they're not supervillains.
Yeah.
Yep. Then we have some really shitty 60s comics fighting where you have a man who's dressed... He's shirtless except he has a bullet head and he's flying around after Quicksilver, speeding after him. And while Quicksilver's running at, with
Oh,
speed
it's
of light.
Whirlwind. Whirlwind's awesome. Fuck you.
Fuck you. Look at this panel. Look at this panel where he's Bullet Man and he's like, you're no Captain America. I'm going to beat you. And then Quicksilver's like, well, you might...
What's wrong with that panel? It's fucking awesome.
Okay.
The speed lines of action.
This is John Buscema on art, for the record.
Yeah, it's awesome. Fill each shit.
Yeah, to be fair, I do like the action and all this stuff, but I think these villains are trash.
They're trash.
That's the thing is,
trash.
I think that the art itself is portrayed really well. The action's great, but the costumes, especially Whirlwind's, is garbage. Sorry, Sly.
Radioactive Man is like a green guy in a toga that has a gun. What does he do?
He's
And,
radioactive.
fuck you.
Radioactive Man sucks, but I do love Whirlwind.
And they also, while fighting, do the traditional, like, two speedsters are chasing each other, and while running, he's like, you possess my blinding speed and far more brute force, but not my maneuverability, as you may have read, like, you're running at the speed of sound. Like, do you need to be talking so much?
Every comic has this, though.
Yes.
According to Phil, every comic ever made is shitty because people talk too much.
To be fair, all these comics have at least 3 speech bubbles going on every panel.
Per panel. And it's an action scene.
Every comic sucks ever. Quote from Phil. Chris
No.
Hamill's X-Men.
Okay, guys, enough. Let's get to the chauvinism.
So, the Avengers start, like... The radioactive people start losing, Avengers start losing, I don't know.
Only one man's radioactive, Phil.
It's the Avengers that are losing in general. So the women come in, and then...
So yeah, the Valkyries, the Liberators, show up, and they're like, hey, let's beat up these shitty villains, because they are shit. Fuck you, Whirlwind. And she grabs Medusa Oh, this panel is the best.
They say, fuck you, Whirlwind, you're a shit villain.
Sly, you have to look at this panel. Where the bullet man is flying around. Quicksilver is in a cannonball position, holding his
fun.
legs.
God, you have no sense of fun. Oh, I'm going to fucking take this so seriously. Quicksilver, the fucking movie. Look at his fucking scenes in that. You're going to say, oh, this takes me out of the fucking story to have him slow motion save everyone from the mansion. This movie sucks. Fuck you, Phil. You and your fucking serious shit.
Yeah. Phil definitely would have loved Avengers 2 if Quicksilver cannonballed and bounced around.
No, but like it's a fun little fucking scene. You're going to fucking say like, oh, this is shit.
That's literally his job on the show.
It is goofy. It's really goofy.
It's goofy, but it's fun.
The Quicksilver scene, to compare them, the Quicksilver scene is fun, but it is also interesting. This is not interesting.
It's fun though. Come on, Jesus Christ.
It's really okay. It's fun to you. It's not fun. It's not really fun.
We're missing the fact that Medusa grabs the Bullet Man with hair and throws him, and the Bullet Man's dead.
I also want to point out this is literally one panel. Phil's saying this book sucks. Quicksilver was in a cannonball for one fucking panel. Wow.
That's not why the book sucks. That just
no. But when he first finished his book, he was like, "Man, this book sucks." Quicksilver is in a cannonball. Can you believe that?
That's not what I said. Listen to what I said. I was trying to paint you a picture where I look at this Bullet Man with half a body flying around, head first into Quicksilver, who's bouncing as a cannonball, and then the next panel you have a giant man holding a tree and chasing Radioactive Man in a toga down the alleyway. It's like the entirety of it was silly.
You know, this is just like us men to do, is to ignore the women.
Yeah. So the women show up and they.
So this is when Valkyrie like rounds everybody up and yells.
Wait, not yet. They have to beat the villains, right? Yeah, they beat the villains first, and then they're like, "Cool, they were pretty easy." And then they're like, "Let's just beat the shit out of the Avengers too." Now that we beat one team. And that's when they say up against the wall, male chauvinist pigs.
And this isn't a word bubble. This is in text overlaid on the screen, and it's the only text in the panel. So given the context of all the lots of panel, it's a pretty cool panel.
Yeah, and she's shooting like a explosive laser out of her spear.
And she says, "You have uttered your famous Avengers Assemble for the final time. From now on, the war cry to remember shall be up against the wall, male chauvinist pigs." Much less catchy, but...
Imagine if that caught on in Avengers movies. Up against the wall, male chauvinist pigs.
It's way too long for that, but they beat the Avengers like so easily. In fact, I think she does it with just her lance. And then they go to the...
We get traditional comic book stuff where it's like, they were trying to get this device that opens up parallel worlds.
And it turns out, Valkyrie, do not call me that any longer. I'm actually... the Enchantress! Whoa, the Immortal is one of the Avengers' oldest, fiercest foes. And so she basically got the other female superheroes on her side, even though she's a villain, just to get this...
Again, through spells instead of, like, actually social gripes.
Yeah, just to clarify, Enchantress is like one of Thor's biggest villains.
Yeah.
And this is why I said this book is shit, what's coming up now. Because they say, but where's her former ally, the Executioner? And she's like... the Executioner dumped me for another woman. And at that day, I realized all men must die. literally the worst feminist trope you can do, that she's a feminist because someone dumped her, and now she wants to literally kill all men.
Yeah, get revenge because of one man.
And this is when I was like, oh, this could have been interesting, where you have, like, women being like, we're always sidelined. Where instead, nope, it's a spell that entrances the good guys. The bad one was dumped, and now she's this evil feminist who's just like, I want to enslave the men.
Are you guys excited to see Executioner and Valkyrie in Thor 3?
Yes. It's not this.
That could be interesting. Yeah.
Imagine if it's this. Exactly
Okay,
this.
keep in mind, these characters went on to be different characters.
Yeah.
I hope she says up against the wall, male chauvinist pig. And
yeah, that'd be great.
That would be a pretty good, like, Easter egg. And then basically she gets beaten immediately because Scarlet Witch shoots her spell back at her. She vaporizes herself. And then they make fun of women again.
No, only Hawkeye does, and Hawkeye would do that because
Hawkeye always does shit like this.
Yeah,
And
he's
he
a
says,
cock.
"You birds finally learned your lesson about that women's lib bull."
But
Yeah.
then the women say, like, you're just a fucking idiot.
Yeah, they say that's what you think, male chauvinist pig. One of these days, liberators will stage a comeback, right, Jan? And Wasp says, "You know what, Wanda? They just might at that."
And that's better than having them cry in the corner and be like, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
Like, I agree with Phil that this has the same problem of magic and shit causing the hate and everything else. But two things I think make this a little bit better. One, first of all, Marvel had enough female heroes, noteworthy female heroes at the time, to actually make a female team, which DC didn't have at the time. Second of all, they actually at the end, Hawkeye is purposely shown to be a dick by saying, "Oh yeah, all the women's lib shit is bull," and the women say, "No, you know what? Maybe Valkyrie was a bitch."
They don't justify it though, because like you said, it's good that he's portrayed as like the male chauvinist pig actually. But if they had a rebuttal besides like, "Fuck you," like
No, they say like we might go back to what we did before. Like we might do that for real. Maybe this portrayal was wrong, but the idea was right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wish they made that more clear. And I think this book would have been a lot better if Enchantress was like she really believed that females were kept down and was like, I'm going to like change that.
I will agree with
Yeah.
that. Like the fact that she was like a fuck men for dumping me does make it worse.
It's just like it's the most stereotypical thing that people say about feminists. They're like, "Oh, she probably got dumped and now she hates men." Like,
But it's like we talk about. It's context matters because Stan Lee was good compared to DC, and Roy Thomas is a little bit better than Stan Lee at this.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
definitely.
It only took 10 years for a woman to rebut a joke at the end of a comic.
and then the rest of the ads are just to be buff. Stuff like that.
So, that was the first Valkyrie story.
Now we're going to the first one I read, the first Valkyrie story I read, and it is Incredible Hulk 142.
By Roy Thomas and the art by Herb Trimpe and John Severin.
Yeah, just to explain Herb Trimpe because he's worth noting, he is the Hulk artist. He drew more Hulk than anyone else, I think. Ever.
I think so, yeah. And this is 1971, so this is soon after that.
So the cover is Valkyrie holding Hulk in front of what looks like, I don't know, a big stone monument, and she says,
I think it's supposed to be the Empire State Building because of the.
"Oh yes,
Or is it the Chrysler?
yeah." So it's like one of the buildings. Buildings exploding behind them. She's about to throw Hulk off this building, and she says, "Every male chauvinist pig in the world will tremble when he sees the Hulk hurled to his death by a woman."
That's that's Sly's woman impression.
Yeah, I am a woman. Hear me roar.
And it says Valkyrie's back.
Yeah. So first page, the title is "They Shoot Hulks, Don't They?" Which is reference to a fucking movie. I don't know why it's named this. And just to give some backstory on why this book made me so fucking mad when I read it, this takes place almost immediately after Harlan Ellison's brief Hulk run, which is one of the classic early Hulk stories where Hulk shrinks down to atomic size and becomes and meets a bunch of green people, and basically he gets accepted for the first time in his life.
It's called The Heart of the Atom.
Yeah, and it gets taken away from him for the first time. And so Harlan Nelson is the writer of I Have No Mouth and I'm a Scream. He wrote a lot of TV. He's a great writer. He wrote that great story, and then we have this fucking shit.
Can I read the second page text
Yeah, sure.
blurbs? 'Cause this was my first introduction to Roy Thomas, and this is where I was like, okay, this is a significant step up to someone that called like an enemy a crumb. So it says, "For the great green behemoth, living symbol of man's inhumanity towards all that is strange or alien to him, it has been a tiring day, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. But now, even a moon-bathed night is not bright enough to keep a weary man-monster forever skulking in death-dark shadows, when he craves naught save the nectar-sweet boon of peace, and quiet, and sleep." It's about him sleeping on the Statue of Liberty, like, basically in her hands.
The writing is good, the narration, until we get into the actual dialogue very quickly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I like his general narration writing, and the stuff he does for the Asgardians is good, I think.
That's actually very common in the 70s for me, where the narration is like really poignant and nice and like really well written, and then the dialogue is like super hokey.
Yeah, so, because Hulk's sleeping on the Statue of Liberty, next day everyone wakes up and like, holy shit, Hulk's on the Statue of Liberty. And one guy's yelling at the Hulk's up there. He's in the top of the Statue of Liberty. And one guy's like, "Hold down, Pete, not so loud. You might wake him up from all the way down at the base of the statue."
He might have super hearing ears. They're small but powerful.
Maybe this police officer is Banshee.
Yeah, maybe.
Banshee, shut up.
So springs out the news that the Hulk is on the Statue of Liberty, and we cut to like a bunch of
This
fucking
is such a
yuppies.
weird premise for this.
It really is.
Issue.
This is really weird. It's like really upper class like Manhattan socialites that are like very wealthy, and they're always throwing fundraisers, and they're like, "Why don't we throw a fundraiser for the Hulk?"
I'd like to think that this character is Lindsay Bluth from Arrested Development.
But they're like, "Militia, my boy. It would appear that our social fortune is made. We've only to reach out and pluck the golden apple from the tree." And his wife's like, "Don't be a bore, Reggie dear. Whatever are you talking about? Why, about the so-called Hulk, of course."
So fucking ham-fisted.
Also, it's great how he always calls his wife and his daughter "my pet."
Yeah, and he's like, "Everyone who is anyone this season has given at least one fundraising party for some socially oppressed groups. The Panthers, the Grey Pickers, even the Friends of the Earth, they've all been done. We are going to give such a party for the Hulk."
And his daughter's like, "Can you do it for my women's lib movement?" And he's like, "No, I'd rather give the money to the Hulk."
Yeah. And by the way, his daughter looks like exactly like the Valkyrie, which is a hint for who she will be.
Spoiler.
Who gives a shit? This book fucking sucks.
This is my favorite.
Oh my god.
I'm just kidding.
So General Ross, who is the guy who always hunts the Hulk, he goes.
He's
to
unimportant. Fuck him.
Yeah, he is.
But
But
he says Balderdash.
he says
I know, but-
Balderdash, Talbot.
We still have another issue after this.
Yeah. And so he's just there, like, say, "Fuck you, Hulk." He flies on a helicopter and just says, "Fuck you, Hulk." And he flies away.
That's what he says.
No wonder the Hulk's always so mad. People just come over and go, "Hey, fuck you."
Yeah.
But basically, the rich people show up and they're like, "Oh, there's a police quarantine," and the rich guy's like, "Money has gotten us this far, hasn't it? And it will get us further."
So he wants to like bribe the Hulk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically, the police are like, "No, fuck you, get the fuck out of here." The daughter is like, "Save the tonsil, mumsy, because your number one daughter, Sam, has a better idea." And she basically beats the shit out of a fucking cop. So,
She throws him off the edge.
Yeah.
like, and no one shoots her because she's white. But
Jesus.
Also, he's the only cop there. They say that later. Too.
oh, okay. And he's like, "This way, folks. I love you both dearly, but you never were very practical because beating up cops is very practical."
And I love how the dad's like, "Wow, your women's liberations activities have had a detrimental effect on you, on your vocabulary."
Yes.
Now you're a cop killer.
It's so weird. It's such a weird thing. Whatever.
This whole book's fucking weird.
Yeah.
So then they go to the crown to talk to Torches where the Hulk is, and they're like, "Oh, Hulk, could you perhaps come down for a moment?" And the Hulk says, "Yes, Hulk, say where Hulk is. Hulk like here on statue. Hulk love freedom and liberty." No, but like basically says like, "I like being alone. Leave me alone." And since it's the 60s, the daughter Sam is like, "Dazzy, we're running out of time, and you're still running in Strikeout City. How about letting me have a whirl?" And the girl is just like, "People fucking hate you. Why don't you just find a place where you're wanted, and we want you, so why don't you come with us?" And Hulk is like, "Okay." And
Yeah,
he
because like she says you can have your own country.
Yeah.
I don't know how much money they have to buy a country, but
Yeah, and Hulk says, "Maybe you'll give me some place where no one will bother Hulk. No one will shoot at Hulk. They shoot Hulks, don't they?" He's like, "No, you said that." But
Hulk will go with you now.
Hulk will go with you, and but he basically make it clear that he only trusts Sam Valkyrie, future Valkyrie, and not the parents. And basically they bring the Hulk to the house, and the parents are like, "Oh yes, we brought the Hulk down. We're great." And daughter's like, "How could you, Daddy? You took credit for everything." And the dad's like, "Now be fair, my pet. After all, seeking out the Hulk is my idea after all." And the daughter's like, "You're just trying to exploit him. Fuck you." And he's like, "Eat my shit, daughter." And he takes the Hulk. And he's just like, "I can't believe my dad said it, even though he said he wants Hulk just to get up on the social ladder. He's using Hulk to get up on the social ladder. This is stupid." And so we
This scene coming up is one of the weirdest scenes I've read in a comic book.
Yeah, mine too. This is after one of the best Hulk stories I've ever read. This is what I get. This fucking book. And basically all the socialites are like in the room, and they're like fawning over the Hulk, and they're holding a big party for him.
It's literally like a really upper class, Upper East Side Manhattan dinner party with Hulk. And
Yeah.
he's not even he's wearing his purple like fucking pants.
Yeah.
Like, and they're like serving hors d'oeuvres, and they're like, "Oh, Hulk, what a good to see
they're all just
you
like
here."
talking to him, fawning around him, like touching him.
I do actually really like how uncomfortable the Hulk is with all of this.
Yeah, he's just like, leave me alone. This is a trap. Hulk will smash wall. And they're like, isn't he adorable, Elizabeth? He's been saying that all day.
I do understand where Roy Thomas is going from, though.
It's a commentary on like fucking rich socialites and they're fucking trying to climb social ladder, but it's fucking stupid.
Yeah, and like
Hulk
dumping
book.
all over the people they're supposedly protecting.
I don't know. I like
Yeah.
it.
Do you?
No, I like.
Yeah.
I'm saying I like that.
I think this is like an interesting kind of like spin on the Hulk, where usually you just see him fighting stuff. It's like, what if like rich people really liked him because they're so out of touch with reality? That
It's
they're
just,
like,
it's the same thing when people have like help the poor fundraisers in like, $1 million mansions and stuff.
No, but
Or,
what I
like,
don't get is like the thing that makes it weird to me is like the Hulk here. Would he be okay with being in a place like this?
no, he
ever?
wouldn't. That's the thing. This is okay. This is okay only if you ignore the fact it's a Hulk comic. This is why it's different when you're reading like Darryl, like just somebody like, oh, this is a story of the Hulk. I was reading this in continuity where Hulk was persecuted, hunted on end, and then we have this fucking story where the government's like, okay, we'll let these rich yuppies have him, and they have these
That's
fucking
true,
jokey
that's true.
scenes. Like it's okay if you're reading this if it's in the 60s DC comic because they're always fucking stupid. But this is a continuity where Hulk is always hunted, trying to find a place to live, and these fucking rich people are having him at a party and it's like, oh, isn't this posh, my dear?
And
Yeah.
I do like how they're like, well, next week I'm gonna one up them and I'm gonna host the X-Men in my fundraiser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I can understand Darryl liking it because if you read this in the bubble, it's,
I
it
can
seems-
understand that because Daryl's an idiot.
But you like the like, concept.
yeah, I like the concept. Yeah.
But like it's like for me, the concept is to the judgment of the main book for me.
Yeah, I can see that.
But yeah, so they're like, would you want me to movie Hulk? I've got the effect of gamma rays on Man and the Moon Marigolds. And then the guy's like, back off! I want to be in the movie called I Am Furious Green. And it's just a bunch of fucking movie references.
So they're having this dinner party.
And they're having a party, and then it turns out there's a woman liberation group is picketing the party.
Sam
The
is
leader-
protesting now.
Yeah, the leader is Samantha, and the parents are like, how dare they betray us like this?
Also, I want to point out someone at the protest, like Sam's holding a thing that says like equal something rights for women.
Yeah.
And another woman's holding a sign that says the hand that rocks the cradle should rule the world.
I don't get
Because
it.
mothers should be in power.
I like the idea that they're not like equal rights, they're like women should rule the world. Like it's always going too far in one direction with
It is
women's
also
lib.
people that are picketing and protesting at a women's lib movement, like big protest. I could see that.
Yeah, and that quote is not like it wasn't invented here.
Someone later on has a sign that just says the Hulk is a sexist.
Yeah, they do.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they do.
I missed that.
But Sam is like, why give parties for the Hulk while women are the real victims of society? Which I don't get. Like, she wants a party too?
Well, she wanted them to do the fundraiser for women's lib, and they said, no, fuck you, we're giving it to the Hulk
I
instead.
think the fact that her dad took credit for getting the Hulk down and like inviting him really peeved her too.
Yeah.
I get that, but like, it's just a weird thing to protest. Like, give us a party instead of the Hulk.
No,
like,
give us money. Stop giving money to this fucking, like, monster.
But this is fucking monster. Like, again, if you're looking at the context of the social message that Roy Thomas is awkwardly pointing
That's
in, it
true,
makes
that's
sense. But if you're looking at it in context of the world where Hulk smashes things every day, and people want to give him a fucking planet to live on, why not let him do it? Fuck.
Yeah.
But like, so yeah, so Enchantress, meanwhile, we cut to Enchantress out of nowhere, and Enchantress is like, I hate men, I hate the Hulk. I will make this woman to a new Valkyrie because I don't want to be Valkyrie anymore. And she makes Sam into a Valkyrie.
She walks up to like the Empire State Building and just yells Valhalla.
Hello!
And she turns into the Valkyrie from the last issue.
Yeah. And meanwhile, we come back to the party, and they have the one funny scene I like in this book.
Yeah, this is
where
my favorite page.
I like this too.
this one Podge guy's talking in the front.
Basically about how he's a fucking idiot and he loses all his money all the time and then he won the lottery anyway.
Yeah, and basically in the background there's an waiter with hors d'oeuvres walking around, and Hulk is trying to get hors d'oeuvres, but the guy just keeps ignoring him, walking past him. And eventually Hulk just gets mad, just picks him up, and like holds him by his collar, and the waiter just has a whole batch of hors d'oeuvres, and
Hulk just eats them all.
And Hulk just tips the plate and eats them all. It's really
Yeah.
funny. I really like
it's a cute scene that works only in comics.
But basically, they make $100,000 in cash and checks for the Hulk, and they're, here it is, Hulk. Here's your freedom. And Hulk is like, this is just money and paper. What does Hulk have to do with scraps or paper.
And like he doesn't understand that gets land. So he like throws it on the ground and rampages.
$100,000 gonna go buy my own country. So yeah.
They could just fucking bomb the country for him. Like if this is any fucking.
Well, he only wanted to do the fundraiser. He didn't give a shit about the result.
Oh, that makes sense in that context. Okay. So Valkyrie, as Hulk is getting mad, like, "Whoa, you just gave me money. You said you gave me land." Valkyrie smashes through the window and says, "Up against the wall, male chauvinist pig." Trademark, patent pending.
This is great too. She for some reason, I mean, I know why, because Enchantress said she hates the Hulk, but like this feminist thing now is now turned into, instead of Valkyrie fighting the people who were not giving women's movements any money, she's like, I'm gonna fight the Hulk. And to make it worse, Hulk's like, Hulk does not fight girls.
Yeah.
I like that even like in his like enraged state where it's like it's hard for Hulk to think, as he says. That he's like, I can't hit women. Like that's too much.
Well, Hulk has always been like the embodiment of like a giant boy child.
Do boy childs not hit women? Or girls?
You know, like he's supposed to be like macho-ness with no intellect. Like
I view him more like how like giant monsters like Gamera in movies have soft spots for children and stuff. Like he has a soft spot for women and kids, usually Hulk.
I guess
true.
Because they're all defenseless, weak creatures.
Yeah, the weaker sexes.
That's the thing, is like she's not like a woman who's like, help me. She kicked him in the face and has a spear, and she's like, I'm gonna kill you. So it's
but keep in mind, Hulk lives in the 60s, so he sees women be like, help me, I'm woman by Stan Lee, I can't defend myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, Valkyrie's just like, oh, fuck you, male chauvinist pig, and Hulk just like, oh, I don't want to fight a woman.
So she beats the shit out of him.
really badly, because he refuses to fight her.
And then she drags him by his hair to the Empire State Building.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, this is great. The mighty man, monstrous Hulk, a helpless heap of quasi-human rubble, beaten beneath the hand of a mere woman. All mankind, every egocentric male must know of it and tremble. So that's why she goes to Empire State, to everyone know that Hulk was beaten by a woman. Women can beat up men. I guess we need to, if men find that out, we will all die, I guess.
Such a weird, again, so weird, like, to be like, you chauvinist pig, Hulk, like, has he ever been a chauvinist? Like,
no.
Women should be protected, not fighted.
Fighted. I speak good to me, Darryl.
Sly's disease is spreading to Darryl.
I read so much Hulk, this is why I talk this way, guys.
Sly, read good.
Okay, we have 2 pages left. Can we please finish this?
Yes.
No, this is
eternal.
This is gold. This is gold material we're running through right now.
Yeah. But, so, Valkyrie throws the Hulk off the Empire State, but now the Sam part of Valkyrie realizes, no, I've thrown the human to his death. I can't let this happen. She goes to try to save Hulk. It turns out Hulk survived the fall because he's the Hulk. And
did she think that would kill him?
I guess so. Yeah. And Hulk's still like, I'm not gonna fight a woman, and she's like, I guess I'll fight you again. So that whole entire scene was pointless. But
to be fair, he does say Hulk still doesn't want to fight a woman, but if you make him, then this time, like he finally gave up on like, well, maybe I'll just fight a woman. But we don't even get to see him fight her.
I give up on chivalry. Now you women will get what you want, and now we are truly equal opportunity. This is a commentary of what women should be careful what they wish for. Mm-hmm. Now you get beaten by the Hulk too. But
this is symbolic. This is symbolic of if women are in the draft. You know, you're fighting all these Hulks.
Yeah. So, but then this whole comic's dumb and it ends in a dumb way because Enchantress runs out of power. And so that makes Valkyrie turns back to normal, and it just ends suddenly.
It makes Hulk turn back to normal too.
Yes,
he turns back into Bruce Banner.
Yeah, and then they're like, "Who are you?" Never mind, bye.
Yeah. Hulk turns back to Bruce Banner, and I like this because he's just like, "What the fuck are you?" And she's like, "I'm Samantha," and he's just like, "Oh, thrilled. Now if you're part of my bag," and he just leaves.
He doesn't say anything again. Yeah, he just literally leaves, and she's like, "That's weird. I had a weird dream."
Yeah. So the final issue is another Roy Thomas issue, and it's the X-Men, the strangest teens of all. Issue 64, and the story is...
This is 1970, so it's still right around the same time as the other Roy Thomas issues.
The story is the coming of Sunfire, and it opens up with Sunfire, who is a guy dressed in all red, and he has a Japanese imperial flag basically on his chest.
I hate his stupid face thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the World War II imperial government flag, not the modern Japanese government.
Yeah,
which is important.
It opens with him basically saying, "Oh, this country's full of ants. Soon they shall know the ominous dread of Sunfire."
Oh, and it's Roy Thomas and Don Heck on art.
Yeah,
Don Heck's an old classic X-Men artist.
Yeah, so the X-Men detect immune on Cerebro and like, oh, we should investigate this. And just to clarify, this is the original X-Men.
Yeah,
Cyclops, Beast, Jean Grey, Angel, and Iceman.
Yeah.
So the Sunfire is basically attacking a ceremony where the Japanese Prime Minister, I believe, or delegate.
I think he's the ambassador to the UN.
Yeah, I think
The ambassador to the UN, the Japanese ambassador to the UN comes, and he's like, I have to give a speech.
it's a speech for peace too. It's like we'll have the young people in the world will have peace together.
Yeah, and they're like, that was a great speech. And Sunfire comes up and says, yes, perfect speech for a traitor. And Sunfire just fucking starts shooting fire everywhere.
Yeah.
And everyone starts freaking out, running, and the X-Men come to try to fight Sunfire.
And classic X-Men logic, they're like, maybe we'll finally get some good press for this, and this won't be like a controversial fight with deep moral implications.
Yeah. But then Sunfire just kicks the shit out of them. He burns Beast's face, and outruns Angel as he's getting away. So then they're like, wow, we got fucked. And now Beast is out of commission because his face got just fucking burned by Sunfire.
It's not that bad. It's like a little burn on his forehead.
But he's out of action, guys. He can't fight anymore.
I thought when I first saw that, the fact that his face was all red and burned, I thought it was going to be like this guy had radioactive powers and he got like radiation poisoning or like radiation burns, but no, it's like he got a sunburn.
Well, keep in mind, in the 60s, radiation gives you superpowers. It doesn't
They also,
anyway.
the 60s were pretty, liberal with that kind of thing, because, Johnny Storm usually got beaten by asbestos blankets.
Yeah. So Angel and Beast go to Scott and Jean, and they tell Beast, like, you're out of commission. The rest of us will take care of Sunfire. And meanwhile they're recovering, Sunfire's recovering with his uncle, and Sunfire's like, this feels wrong, Uncle, like all this violence.
I have to recap my origin to remember my motivation.
Yeah, and he's like, have you forgotten your origin when they nuked us in Hiroshima? And you got superpowers from that as a mutant?
Well, what happened was his mom was in the blast of Hiroshima.
And she was pregnant with him, and she died.
Yeah, she was, paralyzed and then later died in childbirth.
Yeah, and she gave birth to Sunfire, and now he has fucking shoot fire out of his hands power.
What was weird is that he had to go to the remains of the ruins and, touch them to get his powers?
Yeah. He was a dormant mutant that he touched radioactive sand or whatever. And
nowadays they explain that with your immune powers come with puberty. I guess this was before that. Like, you had to activate it somehow.
And it's also they're going for the symbolism.
Yeah, he touching the sand of Hiroshima ignited the fire within him.
I actually think that's cool. I actually like him as a villain in almost every way. I like the fact that he is Sunfire because, Japan, Land of the Rising Sun, that's even the name. It's like he is the embodiment of sun, and the fact that he does go to a big some might say crime was committed against, maybe not crime, but an atrocity was committed on many civilians in
maybe
Japan.
Crime's a little harsh. Atrocity.
Because it was a great tragedy that you could lay blame.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard to talk about that without it getting to a huge discussion. But
it was something that you would rightfully, justifiably be maybe a little bit bitter about.
It's a better justification than I got dumped.
Yeah.
And more than bitter, if your parents were killed and your country was humiliated, it seems very logical actually to have rage in your heart over it.
Yeah, and his uncle is fanning these flames.
Yeah, he's basically telling remember they fucking nuked us, they killed your mom.
I like that too, that he had a parental figure that was pushing him in this direction. It's like, yes, we need to get revenge now that you have these powers.
I also find it extra interesting that it's his uncle because we meet his dad later. So I was like, oh, he must have been raised by his uncle. But then when we meet his dad, it's like, oh no, that's even more interesting to me.
Yeah, that was neat.
Yeah. It turns out his dad is the statesman that he was attacking.
Yeah.
UN delegate.
Yeah. So the X-Men go to try to track down Sunfire.
Oh, can I bring up one point? Does Jean Grey have she has telepathy, right?
Yes.
How come they're I can't figure out which one's Sunfire? Can't you listen to their minds?
Does she have telepathy yet, or just telekinesis?
She had telepathy at this point.
Because they're like one person in this crowd has to be Sunfire, and then they're like, well, we can't figure it out.
She also isn't as good as Professor X.
She's not that strong yet.
You have to keep in mind. It's not just I can detect everyone's mind. You have to basically, when you're telepath, you hear a million voices, and you have to decipher which one's the right one. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's like if you were in a big crowd, could you hear one person talking?
Yeah, that's something they clarify in X-Men a lot. It's really hard to train being a telepath. That's why Jean Grey goes
she's not
crazy.
Phoenix yet.
That's why Jean Grey goes crazy a lot of times because it's really hard to train a telepath and not go
Okay.
crazy. But so they go to the Capitol, and their uncle's like, "Oh, out there, Sunfire. Now will be our hour. We will strike now." And
they're trying to do this. They're trying to do this like at in Washington D.C. to really like humiliate the U.S.
Yeah, this is where we find out that the statesman is a dad, and he's like, and he hears Sunfire talking about, they will feel the wrath of the symbol of the rising sun, and Dash comes in, smacks him, saying, "What kind of unreasoning treason do you speak?" And he's like, "All quarrels must be forgotten. Do you hear me? Like, let it go. Like, you have to move on." And he says, "Yes, my father," but deep down he's like, "I will fucking kill this country."
Yeah.
I wish, this is another thing. I think this one was actually pretty good, but I just wish there was a little more nuance in the sense that the dad, like, instead of being like, just forget it, just don't think about it, like, more like the idea should be, we don't forget, but we accept and, like, move on. We accept that it was war. Like, to just, the idea of, like,
I do think it's purposeful that his answers seem unsubstantial now until later. Like, he didn't teach Sunfire properly until it's too late. I think that's the point.
All right, that's fair. I like
yeah.
that.
So the X-Men are there just trying to find Sunfire. Jean Grey's unable to determine who he is. And then the dad stumbles on the son again. This time he's wearing Sunfire costume. He's like, "Oh, now I realize."
Like that, it's a page later after you realize.
And he's like, "Oh shit, you're Sunfire." And he's like, "My son is the dog they call Sunfire." And Sunfire says, "You are too old, too soft to understand what I do. I do for my country." And just pushes his dad aside and flies out to set fire and everything.
And he rationalizes it like his dad has spent too long in America. He forgets the evil they did to his mother, to the homeland.
Yeah, he's too assimilated, and he's kind of betrayed his roots.
Yeah, he mentions, "My uncle has not let me forget since I was but an infant upon his knee." Like, he was clearly raised more by his uncle.
Yeah.
And the X-Men show up and they try to fight Sunfire, but
they all try to 1v1 him.
Yeah, we 1v1 me, but like in real life, 1v1ing is pretty stupid.
I like that each time too they mention it's like, this X-Men is out, he can't fight anymore.
Yeah.
It's like when Iceman fights him, it's like, "Oh, I didn't throw up that ice shield too soon. It's protecting me, but melts. It's turning into red hot steam. The heat, I can't stand the heat."
Yeah.
They all get knocked out so quickly. He singes his wings, Angel's out. He's too hot, Iceman's out.
It is kind of ridiculous because, like, at this point the X-Men were a better team than this, but for convenience sake they are dispatched one by one. But it is for the sake of the story, which is cheap, but I do think the final pages make up for some of the flaws in this book. But so the X-Men are dispatched, and it seems like now Sunfire can just set fire to the Capitol.
And awesomely, I love when he's using his powers, and he's like, "You destroyed with heat, and now your capital shall be engulfed by it. The power of the atom and the power of the sun are one."
Like, that's awesome.
So fucking good. It's so fucking cool because the sun is just constant nuclear fusion. It's like, it's so cool.
But it turns out his son's standing right on
His dad.
The Capitol. His dad. Don't talk to my son or me ever again. No. Sunfire's dad, the statesman, he's at the Capitol, and he's like, "Okay, burn it then. Burn me down too." And Sunfire's like, I can't do it if you're here. Don't make me make this choice." And he's like, "Make it. Fucking kill me. Kill everyone." And the uncle's like, "You know what? Since you're having so much trouble with this Sunfire, I'll do it for you." And he shoots his dad, and his dad falls off the Capitol after being shot. And Sunfire gets so mad he kills his uncle right then and there. And the final page is Sunfire sitting over his dying dad, and he's like, I did not mean for this to happen. If only I could undo the wrong that I've done." And his dad says, live only for the future, Shiro, not for the past. Forge the tools of peace from the chains of war." And then the police come, and they see what's happening, and they say, "We'll wait over there, son." And the X-Men are there too, and they say, "Well, we might as well go. There's nothing more we can do." And yet, Shiro's mother was caught in the blast, you said? And Angel says, "Yes, that must be why he's a mutant. If only we could have reasoned with him, reached him in time, somehow." And Cyclops says, "Maybe the next one." Yeah, maybe the next one. And they all leave as Sunfire just grieves over his dead dad.
It's a very, like, melancholy, sad, and...
This page is, like, what makes the comic great.
And the thing that's so rough is, like, the way they say, like, maybe the next one, it shows, like, there'll always be these bitter mutants.
Yep.
Yeah. And it also shows that the X-Men completely failed Sunfire in this scenario.
Yep.
And the final panel is him crying over his dead dad's body while the police just, like, turn their backs on him.
Yeah.
And, like, even though there's people in the panel, he looks so alone.
And I think it is great that he says, "If only I can do the wrong I've done." Like, I wish I could go back, but the dad's like, "No, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
You can't go back."
Yeah, you always look towards what you can fix in the future. Then
Yeah.
We talked about how like, the endings of a lot of the other ones ruin the message. This one actually it has like
It encapsulates it so well.
the ending makes it, and we talked about how like comics are better when they're quiet. This is another example of a quiet panels because after Cyclops says maybe the next one is just the last 2 panels is just Sunfire by himself.
I think this one also was easier to be successful with because even though we were putting this in with Marvel vs. Discrimination, I'm not sure if this really is discrimination in the same way that the other ones were. It's more
Keep in mind, Asian characters at this time were still either really racist characters with the straw hats and everything, or were kung fu masters.
Okay.
Even until the 70s, they were still this. Sunfire was a rare exception of an Asian character.
Okay, in that context, then I definitely appreciate it more. Because I liked this one a lot, actually, when I read it. I just was like, talking about someone who's bitter from a war between 2 countries, 20 years before this, like, it's easier to handle that than to deal with, like, sexism. But
yeah. Fun fact, this was the second to last issue before X-Men got canceled.
really,
Yeah.
Just to show you that sometimes quality books aren't enough to keep a book profitable.
Yeah, and Roy Thomas's whole run is like, if you like this issue, his whole X-Men run is great.
see, that's why.
Yeah.
That's why I was making my comment that I like Roy Thomas as a writer. I think he's pretty good.
I think he's kind of hit or miss for me.
At least from like the couple that I've read. Again, I haven't read like his Nadir. I don't think.
he did the Hulk one.
Yeah, I know, but that again, I still like the writing in that one. It's a dumb story,
Okay, that's
but I mean, it wasn't
that's
the Hate Monger where it's Hitler with a big H on his chest shooting lasers at people to make them fight.
Yeah.
You'll all be racist soon.
So that wraps up. Which was I think we all know which was the number 1 favorite.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Sunfire.
Which one was the worst for all of you?
For me, it's the letters.
No,
Because it's just...
but
Mine's the Hulk, just because I read it when I wasn't expecting it, so that memory will always be seared in my mind.
I think mine's the Hate Monger.
yeah, I think mine's the Hate Monger. The thing is the letters one. It's not a story in and of itself. It's just them explaining their origin and then like pitying.
But
Sue.
that's what makes it so shitty to me, because it's just being lectured to that, like, Reed's not sexist, but he super is.
Yeah. All right, so
I have one question from Brian, if
Okay.
it's really short.
Brian who?
This comes from Brian Aarons.
X-Men Brian?
Excellent, Brian.
Oh, what a surprise!
If you want to reach out to us, Divisive Issues on Facebook, Twitter, Gmail, all that stuff. What if Harambe was shot by a time traveler to prevent Planet of the Apes from happening?
What if? I mean, we will never know. So if it happened, that's good for that reason.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I mean, we can't know that, so I don't know what to tell you, Brian.
Harambe?
Except for Harambe.
Yeah, it's except for Harambe.
Wait, what are you saying?
Never mind.
All right, we'll catch you up later. We'll show you some pictures.
Oh no!
Some dicks out.
I know what that always means.
So, and make sure you guys rate, review, subscribe, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. It actually helps a lot more than people think.
Yeah, it helps a ton, and it doesn't take too much effort on your end, I want to say. I mean,
don't
some
think
people
so.
might take a lot of effort, but we really, really appreciate it. It means a lot to us.
Yeah.
I guess I should like Divisive Issues on Facebook.
Fuck you.
I think you just did like a week ago, you asshole.
I'm just kidding. No, it was a few months ago.
It was not.
Maybe it was like 3 weeks ago.
Are we going to do recommendations?
Yeah.
Sure.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first because mine's very simple. Because I included in this episode, I recommend this issue of X-Men and Roy Thomas' X-Men. It's good. Read it.
Cool. I am going to recommend my favorite Stan Lee run, read Stan Lee's Silver Surfer. It tackles a lot of social issues really, really, really well, and I think it's Stan Lee's best work. Also, John Buscema on art, who did one of the ones we were talking about.
Avengers.
Yes. And it's really, really, really good.
Yes.
If you want to see social issues tackled in a more nuanced way, in many different angles, The Wire is a really good show that deals with. It's mostly race and socioeconomic issues, but I think it really handles these kinds of issues without ever being like this is fucking trash. And for the feminist side, just read A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. It's just that's all. You don't need to read any feminist comics. Just read that. Or if you want to read feminist comics,
read more something out of after the 90s or 2000s, preferably.
Read Color Purple by what's her name?
yeah.
Read Purple Rain.
Or Fun Home by Alison Bechtel. I mean, that's a comic that actually deals with issues of sexuality and whatever.
Whatever.
Better.
All that bullshit. All that SJW bullshit.
Alice Walker. She was the writer of The Color Purple. That's my recommendation. Just read feminist literature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This does not count, what we read today.
Yeah. Are you sure?
Okay, I'm going to have a second recommendation real quick. If you want a really great female-driven comic book, read Greg Rucka's Batwoman.
That's a good one.
Also deals with sexuality.
Yeah, black woman. Batwoman's a lesbian character too, so that's another SGW thing. It's great. It's great. I love Wonder Woman. Batwoman. I can't say that.
His Wonder Woman's also great too, so whatever.
Yeah. I love Greg Rucka.
So, thank you guys.
Me like woman.
Me, male chauvinist pig.
Thank you guys for taking this walk down memory lane. Next week, DC versus discrimination.
Does DC do it better? Spoilers, no.
I mean, could they do it worse?
Oh, spoilers, yes.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to seeing how they do it worse.
Thank you guys for listening to Divisive Issues. I've been Cannonball Quicksilver.
I've been a chauvinist pig.
I've been a tall Timmy.
And I've been the Vengeful Valkyrie.
Stay in continuity.